Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Finding Your Path to Your Best Emotional and Physical Health. My name is Erin, and remember to hit subscribe if you like what you hear today so that you can get notified when new videos come out. And please feel free to share this information with anybody that you think might need it to help enhance their lives as well. Also, you can feel free to download my 5 free videos on the tips to finding your best emotional and physical health and start you on your way. So with that, let me get into today's topic. This is a continuation of our series on attachment and how attachment affects our relationships in our everyday adult lives. And we had been talking about anxious attachment. Now we're going to talk about avoidant attachment, or sometimes called dismissive attachment or something like that. So these are the folks that in their childhood have found that their parents kind of kept a big emotional distance from them and were not there to really support them. A lot of times it was neglectful parenting. Maybe they had other things going on in their lives that kind of distracted them from being there for the child as they needed it. Something like that. So the problem with this is that the child learns really quickly to minimize the seeking of the parent, because when they have sought out the parent is not there to help them or emotionally support them. So they may seek out someone else. There's always that possibility. And those people, if they actually seek out someone else and find a different attachment figure, maybe if there's multiple adults in the household, they may actually become more secure and not really avoidant like this. But even so, they can have some challenges or have a tendency towards avoidance, especially if the primary caregiver, such as a mother or father, was unavailable. They may somewhat attach to a grandparent if they're in the household, but still have some difficulties because they have that kind of disconnect from their actual parent because they were, working or busy with something else, who knows. So those kinds of people actually tend to have difficulty remembering their childhood because they just cannot put an emotional memory to the events that happened because they have blocked. They're very, very good at blocking emotions. These are the people that are like, I don't feel anything. I don't know anything. This is, I don't want to carry this into my regular life, and emotions aren't important. So they tend to minimize that seeking of others for the most part because they pride themselves on not needing somebody, and they just don't feel comfortable. So they kind of they get this where the lack of emotional involvement of certain parts of their brain keep them from labeling relationships as good or bad or whatever, and they have a kind of a hard time identifying those things associated with relationships, and they also mislabel them because of that. So that makes it hard for them to find adult connection. So the way that some of these people show up is in their adult relationships is really feeling like they can't commit to anything. And that's not only relationships, but sometimes work, those kinds of relationships as well. Friendships, they may have some long-lasting friendships, but they tend to go through people pretty quickly. They may, in a relationship, constantly flirt with other people rather than the person they're in the relationship with. That could be a challenge. They tend to focus on the imperfections of others and not really pay attention to the good things in the relationship because that's how they justify keeping that emotional distance from someone. They also sometimes will, once they break up with the person, maybe feel like they pine for that person or that they'll not get back to that person and that person was better than they thought they were, because now they don't have imperfections because they're distant, right? So that once they've made them distant, then they're okay, right? So they also have a tendency to resist getting to the point where they want to say I love you or express those connection feelings. They might be okay at expressing other kinds of feelings such as anger or anxieties, those kinds of things, sometimes even depression, but they have a really hard time with positive emotions because they don't associate those with relationships. So they don't know how to then recognize that when they get that into an adult relationship. Now, some of you that might be doing some active dating may seem like, oh, this is everyone out there. And those of you, and this is not just true of women, but a lot of women will recognize that in the men that they date that don't want to commit or can't commit, and have a hard time maintaining connection over long periods of time. But this doesn't mean that it can't happen in women as well, where they tend to avoid, because it definitely does. I just can't say that I've necessarily seen a lot of that, because I tend to see the other side. But it's important to understand that it can happen with men or women. The other thing that can kind of happen in these relationships is they will tend to pull away when things are going well, or sabotage stuff sometimes, because all of a sudden it's like, well, this is getting too close and this is starting to get scary, so I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to either sabotage it or pull away or use some excuse or something like that, whatever it might be. They also tend to get to form relationships that have an impossible future. People that are in a long distance, people that are married, people that have other relationships, those kinds of things. That's real common for them. They also tend to like to keep secrets and keep things foggy and ambivalent when they're discussing things with potential partners, because they don't want to commit to anything, so they don't want to be held accountable. So even if you try to not hold them accountable or hold them to what they are suggesting or what they say or what they think, that can be still kind of scary for them as well. They also occasionally will tend to resist physical closeness. They're going to be the ones that maybe don't hold hands or don't want to walk with their partner, things like that. This is not always the case. I've known avoidants that are very good at physical affection, but they're very bad at emotional connection. And sometimes they're bad at both. So it's important to kind of understand that. The other thing they tend to do is excessive independence. They're all about what their independence are. They don't want to rely on anybody. They don't want to change their life for anybody. They don't want to involve other people in their things, and they get somewhat protective about all of that. And it's excessive. It's like when they want to, it's more of these secrets, like they think people are going to use it against them or something like that. So it's kind of be aware of those things. So if you find yourself involved with somebody like this, and there are a lot of them out in the dating world because they have a hard time maintaining relationships. So those of you that might be actively dating for whatever reason may run into these more often than not, both men and women. So it's kind of important to understand that and not let it affect you, and realize that it's not always you, that they may have issues with relationships. Now, the beauty of this is that they can improve those and become more secure should they want to, and should they want to work on some of those things. But it takes practice and most likely some help from a professional, either a therapist or life coach or something like that, to help overcome some of these things that they struggle with, because they are going to have a lot of emotions they're not used to dealing with. And it's a trauma response in general. We've talked about that before, that like I said, this is how they were parented in childhood, and they need to kind of correct that and learn how to reconnect with people, because I think a lot of the times they want that connection, but they don't know how to get it, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's pretty typical of an avoidant, that they want a relationship, or they say they do. And I don't think a lot of them say it because they think that's what people want to hear. I think they say it because they want it, but they don't necessarily know how to get it. And it's just old programming. So we're going to get into more detail in further videos about how to heal some of these different types and other sources of these relationship issues. And we'll continue to look at attachment and how it affects not only relationships in general, but parenting and just our relationship with ourselves as well. So again, if you need some additional support, please connect with me on the website, and we'll set you up with some individual coaching. Thank you so much. Bye.